Would you state your name, please?
Annette Harvey.
All right. Ms. Harvey, I'm not sure it would surprise you that I don't know exactly where to start,
I understand.
but I'll start somewhere. All right?
Yes, sir.
You, and I'm really unclear on this. Did you grew up, I guess, in Bristol, Tennessee, is that right?
Yes.
And we've heard some testimony from Rebecca Lewis that she lived in a neighborhood nearby where you grew up in an apartment complex, is that correct?
Yes.
You were in an apartment complex and she was in a freestanding home, I guess.
Yes.
But there was a field between you, is that right?
Yes.
Now, you may need to put the microphone a little closer to you because you may be a little soft-spoken. So, tell the jury when you first met Robin Leonard.
I remember the first time Robin and I met, we were pretty little. If I had to guess, I'd say 10 and 11, 11 and 12. I'm a year older than Robin. Both our birthdays are pretty close to each other. I'm December 5th, she's December 10th, just 1 year apart.
Had your family moved in about the same time her family moved in, or was she there before you, or what was
No, no, the apartment complex I grew up in when I was little, Robin's grandmother also lived in that apartment complex. So when she and her sisters would come to visit her grandmother, that's how we met, on the playground at the apartment complex. That's how I met Robin and her sisters.
Now, did you all follow each other through, were you in elementary school at that time?
We were, but we didn't go to the same school at that
Okay.
time.
All right. And then, did you ever attend the same school?
Yes,
What would that have been?
that was Gateway Christian. I started Gateway in the 8th grade. Robin had been there, I don't know, maybe all through elementary, I'm not sure, but she also attended Gateway. So we reconnected.
So it was a while before you all ended up in the same school together?
A few years.
Okay. Now, without, going through every day of your life, you all, I guess, graduated high school, fair to say?
Well, Robin was hyper smart, and she skipped some grades. She was a grade beneath me and ended up skipping 2 grades and ended up way ahead of me. So as we've all heard them say, she graduated early and left and went to college.
Went to college early?
Yes.
So I guess she goes off to college and you're still finishing high school. Is that the situation?
No, actually, I had a baby.
You had a baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got married and
That
had a
slowed
baby.
you down, I
Yeah,
guess.
when I was only 17. Yes.
All right. And was that in Bristol?
Yes, it was.
And so that, obviously, your life took a different course than hers, fair to say?
Very different.
So how did you stay in touch with her through the years?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Telephone. I moved away to Florida for a while, and I'd say about twice a year we would come back to Tennessee to visit. I would definitely see her when I was here. And then in '94, right around Thanksgiving of '94, we moved back to the area. And as we've heard, actually Robin's mom was the catalyst in helping us get established here. She helped my husband get a job, and she let us live with her for 6 months during that time.
Okay, you were not married at that time to Michael Slatter.
No, I was not.
So it sounds like you kept a close friendship over the years.
Yes, we did, off and on. We lost touch for a little while back, yes.
All right. Is it one of those relationships where really a lot of time can go on, but then you walk together, you walk in, and it's like you never left?
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
Take take us into the Michael Slattery era, if you mind. You know what I mean by that.
Yes, sir.
When did you marry Michael Slattery?
2010.
2010. Now, your child that you had at 17 is that a male?
Yes,
And he is how old?
36.
And he's still living? of
Yes.
course. All right. Where does he live?
Somewhere in this area.
Okay, you don't have a connection with him?
Well, in the past 3 years, I have not talked to him that often.
Anyway, so Michael Slattery comes into your life. How does that happen? Where do you meet him?
We actually met through my son, Andrew.
Okay.
Michael lived in Florida at the time. He had a radio show. And my son was a big fan. He listened to Michael's sermons that were posted online. He listened to his radio show. Every night Michael was on the air, and through him I started listening to Michael also. He's like, this, you gotta hear this guy.
Well,
So
he has a very calming
yes,
presence, doesn't he?
Yes, and I thought he was brilliant. From what I could find out online, he was married, still a pastor, and to me, he was like a grandpa. He was just like Pastor Michael grandpa, he was like, had a really long beard, and I'd seen a picture of him. And anyway, I learned different when I started watching him on the radio show. We watched online. There was a video online.
What do you
so.
mean you learned different?
Well, he didn't look like that at all. He was obviously not a grandpa. But anyway, he was always, at that time, I didn't know him. To me, he was just like a pastor. And he and Andrew started talking on the phone. And I remember the first conversation we ever had, I called the radio show to ask him a question. And I said, I'm like, yeah, hey, Pastor Slattery, this is Andrew's mom. And he said, hey, Andrew's mom. And that's the first time we ever talked.
So, get this straight. Were you living in Tennessee at the time?
Yes, I
that
was.
happened? And you were communicating to him just where you were listening to his radio show?
Yes.
So when did you first meet for real?
Well, we talked on the phone a lot, started having video calls and a relationship, and he asked me to marry him on the phone. We decided to get married before we met in person. So we got married 2010, December 4th.
In Virginia or something?
Roanoke.
In Roanoke.
Yes.
Now, let's move forward a little bit. Now, did Mr. Slattery have a child from a previous marriage?
He had 6 children from a previous marriage.
Well, were any of them young enough to be living with you and Mr. Slattery?
No, they lived with their mom.
All of them?
No, not all of them. Some of them were grown.
Oh, okay.
The younger ones lived with their
The
mom.
younger ones live with mom? Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you married, did, at some point, one of his younger children came to live with you all, didn't you?
No.
No?
No, sir.
Okay, so the 2 daughters that, the 2 little girls that were with you here in Tennessee, they're both the offspring of you and Michael Slattery?
No, sir.
Okay.
My older daughter, Allie, she is not Michael's biological child.
Okay. All right. So you had her with a previous relationship?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I assume Michael took her on just like his own.
Yes, he did.
All right. And so you married, and where did you take up residence
We lived in Telford.
when you married?
Yes.
In Telford. All right. And started raising a family, I guess.
Yes.
Right? Now, at this time in your life, had you had some previous, problems with, that had given you some concern and that you had sought some care for? Some mental problems?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
In 2007, I had, I really don't know how to explain it. I ended up hospitalized.
Where? Remember?
I spent 8 weeks in and out of Woodridge and, wow, I haven't,
It's okay.
there's a hospital in Kingsport. I can't remember the name of it. That one. So between Woodridge and that one.
Did you receive treatment? I mean, did you receive medically assisted treatment, like pharmaceutically?
They gave me a lot of pharmaceuticals. I feel like they were changing my dosage and my different meds quite often.
Okay. And do you remember when you were discharged from the program?
It was early 2008.
Well, were you stable at that point, in your mind at least?
When I was discharged,
Yeah.
I think I had a long way to go. I remember, I think it took me maybe half a year or more before I began feeling normal again.
We heard your husband draw a kind of a metaphor of the tide coming in and out, in and out. Did that metaphor mean something to you?
I think it's a pretty good picture, emotional picture, yes.
Did you have follow-up care? Did you keep going back, or did you
Well,
not?
I was supposed to have follow-up care, but in order to receive it, you have to follow up. I did not follow up.
So time goes on. Is your marriage holding together?
Yes.
Are there valleys and hills and valleys in the relationship?
Well, I think it was certainly not typical. I think Michael and I got along remarkably well. We spent a lot of time together, and I mean, definitely not perfect.
No.
But I definitely think lots more good times than bad.
Well, you've heard him testify today that he's your husband for life. Do you feel like you're his wife for life?
Absolutely.
So, we move on. Why don't we move to November of 2020? Could you tell us what you recall about that trip, that family trip?
Okay. Where should I start?
Well, we've heard from your husband that there was a birthday party arranged, that you were involved in getting a bed and breakfast reservation together. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember where that bed and breakfast was located?
It was in Elizabethton.
Do you remember the occasion, and what it was for? Was it a birthday party?
Well, I mean, I used that as an excuse to make a trip to Tennessee. Yeah, and our anniversary is the day before my birthday. So, yeah, we found an awesome B&B. It was a whole house on a huge farm on a mountain. It was paradise.
All right. So did you and Michael and the two children then drive down to Carter County?
Yes, we did.
And had you planned then, had you been talking to friends and so forth and invited them over for your party?
Yes, I invited quite a few people. Many declined, understandably. It was during the whole COVID thing. Those who felt comfortable coming, they came.
Right. We've heard your husband testify who was there. Robin happened to be there.
She dropped by.
And I think it's fair to say that we have learned at this trial through other witnesses that this was the first time that you had some disclosures to make to your close friend.
During this trip, yes. During that trip, yes.
What happened?
Robin and I were alone at her house, and we were talking, reminiscing, catching up, hanging out, having fun.
Smoking some pot?
Yes. And I remember telling her that I thought my husband that I would eventually die by his hand. And I remember thinking it was a completely logical and rational course of events.
Do you have any idea what might have triggered that with you?
No.
Do you remember harboring those types of thoughts for some time, or is that just coming out of the blue, or can you explain it at all?
I remember from time to time throughout the years thinking that probably if I got out of line, yes.
Was there some a report or a report of a report, whether it was completely unfounded or not, that your husband had been accused of something somewhere else, and that you came to believe that he was involved in something maybe in Florida?
He had been accused by a stepdaughter in Florida a long time ago. It was completely unfounded.
Unfounded, it was unsubstantiated
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
But it was something. Could that have triggered you?
You mean triggered me?
Just hearing about it, just knowing that it happened, could that have had something?
Maybe planted a seed or
Yeah,
some sorts. I guess it's possible.
All right. So, what was Robin's reaction, if you remember, to this story? And honestly, how wild was the story that you had in your mind?
At the time, I was just like, if I ever get out of line, I know Michael's going to kill me.
I mean, did you have anything to base that on? Were you ever subjected to domestic violence by this man?
No.
He seems like the mildest mannered person on the planet. So he never abused you
No,
in any way.
he's never once raised his voice to me, ever. Never.
Right. Did Robin suggest to you that she thought you were, that you were losing it, or anything like that? Did she accept what you told her?
She told me I was brainwashed.
She told you were brainwashed?
Mm-hmm.
By whom?
By Michael.
Did she do that in an aggressive way?
Yes.
Now, Robin was you tell me, but was she a physically powerful person?
Robin was very muscular. She was always strong as an ox. I envied her that a little bit.
She what?
I said I envied that a little bit.
So, Did you and Robin, hatch some kind of a plan that you recall?
Not that night. Well, I was drinking, and I'm not a drinker. At the time, I wasn't a drinker. I remember I got pretty inebriated. And once I told Robin that I knew eventually Michael was going to kill me and I was going to die by his hand, she asked me more about that. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, if I get out of line, him as the head of me, the husband, the head of the wife, it's his responsibility to take care of me if I get out of line. Till death do us part, right? So she told me I was brainwashed and I had to get away from him. And I remember I was sitting on the floor for whatever reason, and I remember her standing over me and literally screaming at me, saying, Annette, you're brainwashed. And I kept saying, oh, no, I'm not. He loves me, I love him, whatever. I kept disagreeing with her. And she kept on and on until she was literally screaming at me, you're brainwashed, you're effing brainwashed, Annette. You've got to get out of there. You've got to get out. And finally, I gave in. I turned into a puddle of just bawling and crying and agreeing, you're right, I am brainwashed. I do need to get out of there. Oh, my God, I accepted it.
Did you, so where are the children at this time?
They're with their dad.
Are you a helicopter mom, a mama bear?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right. Did you, you heard your husband say that he had gone down to Cookville or something to pick somebody up?
Oh, that was the day of my birthday party. Or the day before my birthday party.
That was the previous day then?
This actual night that I'm talking about,
yes,
just now,
yes,
I'm not certain what day that happened.
okay.
We were there for maybe 10 days, a week or 10 days. I'm not sure how long we were in Tennessee for the event, but
All right.
yes.
Well, in any event, you heard him say that when he returned from picking up, do you remember who he went to pick up?
My daughter Amanda and her family.
Oh, okay. But then when he got back, things were strange or something like that.
Yes,
can't
I heard him
remember
say that.
exactly what he said, but did he say something to that effect?
Yes.
That when things got back, they were weird? Why were they weird? Why were things weird when he got back? Do you remember?
Well, I remember the morning when he left to take Amanda and her family back home. It was real early in the morning. He was crying.
You know what he's crying
He didn't
about?
want to leave. And I thought it really strange that he was acting that way. In retrospect, well, he and I haven't talked about it, but I've had 3 years with nothing but time to think about everything and try to piece it all together. In retrospect, I think that he might have been crying and not wanting to leave because I was insisting that he go back to Jersey and leave me and the kids in Tennessee. I wanted him to take my daughter home to Cookville and not come back after us. It was absurd.
And of course, at this time, you had told Robin about your fear of him.
Yes.
Did anybody else, was anybody else told about
No.
these
No, sir.
visions?
No.
All right. In any event, though, what he's told us is that you all eventually did return to New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
And he said it was the strangest car ride he's ever had. Do you remember that car ride back to New Jersey?
I remember, well, I think I remember it.
Is there a difference for you between remembering something and thinking you remember it?
Yes.
do remember getting back to New Jersey.
Yes.
Whatever happened in the car, you do remember that.
Yes.
And did things get back to normal for a while? Or do you remember?
The morning we got back, when Michael left to go take the rental car back, I thought he was going to come back and kill us. So I was trying to get help.
How did that make you feel?
I was terrified.
Who did you reach out to?
Well, my next door neighbor that lives directly to the left of us, there's 2 officers that live there. I hadn't met them before, just casually, because they're neighbors. I didn't really know them, but I started by going over to their house and knocking on the door.
So you actually told a police officer
They weren't home. They didn't answer.
what you were attempting to
Yes.
tell a police officer?
Well, my neighbor, who was a police officer, yes.
About your concerns.
That I was terrified, yes.
So, do you remember Michael coming home that day, or?
He didn't get there till after all the cops came.
Wait a minute. The same day
That morning, yes.
officers came?
Yes, I called 911.
That day?
Yes.
When you went over and your friends weren't there, you called 911?
I went to the other neighbor's house across the street, the next closest neighbor. They didn't answer. And then I was just trying to get help.
So, police officers arrived. Did they take a statement from you?
Yes.
Did you tell them what your concerns were?
I remember talking a lot. I was telling him I was afraid of Michael and that he was trying to kill me and was going to kill me.
Have you ever been able to recognize when you were descending into a manic state? When you're becoming manic? Is it something that you can pinpoint or recognize?
What do you mean by a manic state?
Starting to talk real fast?
No, I don't recognize. No. No, sir. When somebody tells me I'm talking too much, I guess.
But you don't recognize when it might become
No.
an abnormality.
No.
So, did the police officers, did they recognize anything about your condition? Did they suggest that you might need a status evaluation?
Not in so many words. They, there was a lady that came to talk to me who asked me, did I feel like I needed to go to the hospital? And I didn't know she meant for a mental evaluation. I said, well, I am sick. I am exhausted. Pretty much haven't slept the whole trip. Didn't feel like I had gotten any sleep.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you deal well with sleep deprivation?
Do I deal well with it?
Do you deal well with it, or does it affect you? Being sleep deprived.
Oh, I'm sure it affects me.
You said you were tired.
Yes.
Was that because you had not been sleeping?
I know I hadn't been sleeping.
In any event, are you suggesting it was recommended that you go for a status evaluation?
I agreed to go to the hospital.
You did?
Yes.
And you went?
Yes.
And were you evaluated?
They put me in this one hospital, and when I finally got a warm blanket in a quiet room, I fell asleep. And next thing I know, they're waking me up to take me someplace else. And they told me that I had slept for 24 straight hours and without any medication. I just laid down and went to sleep. 24 hours later, they woke me up. That's what they told me.
Remember how you felt after 24 hours of sleep?
I remember feeling peaceful. The nurse told me they were transporting me to this other hospital, this behavioral health place, and I was thankful. And I remember thanking her for her kindness, and I definitely felt peaceful.
I think your husband might have mentioned that you were, and if this is the one, this was the hospitalization we're talking about, you were there for about 10 days, and I think he said until the insurance ran out.
I don't know anything about the
Okay.
insurance running out, but
Okay.
I'd say it was probably 10 days. That's a good estimate.
Do you remember leaving the hospital with, you know, in a different mindset?
Not that different.
You still feel like you had some fears?
Yes.
Did you ever come to recognize that they were irrational fears?
No, not at that time, no.
So you return home. This is in November, correct? Or December, maybe?
Oh, by this time, it's early December.
Early December 2020. Just a few weeks, I take it, before you leave New Jersey and come to Tennessee with your children.
Correct.
Do you remember the way you were feeling when you made a decision to leave your husband, take your children, and come to Tennessee?
Yes, I do.
How did you feel?
Terrified?
Do you think you would have done that if you were not terrified?
No.
What kind of means did you have to travel with? Did you have a pile of dough?
No.
You had a car?
Yes, sir.
What kind of car? Was it a Camry?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you have a little bit of credit on your credit card?
Maybe.
Not much.
Probably not.
Did you have? How are you gonna get gasoline? How are you gonna buy food?
Well, I asked a friend of mine to help me.
You did.
I asked the church to help me. I had talked to the church, Jonesboro Baptist, and told them my plans to leave.
Is that the same church that this doctor preacher man was the head of?
Yes, sir. Dr. Robbins.
Dr. Robbins. I'm not trying to be. I shouldn't be a smart aleck about it, but we'll talk about him in a little while.
Yes, sir.
But now, did you know him from the past?
Yes, sir, I did.
Had you been a couple of times to his church?
No, sir, not just a couple of times. And my husband was the head of his adult Sunday school. My husband taught his adult Sunday school class for probably a year.
Yeah. So, did you feel when you left for Tennessee that you had some support mechanism down here? You
Yes,
had
I
some
did.
support?
I felt like I had the church. He told me to contact the women of the church and they would help me, and I did. And I really, really was counting on them. That was my main outlet, or whatever, for lack of a better word, support that I was really counting on.
Well, we know you had enough money to at least get down here,
Yes.
right? Came down here, and we've heard that you maybe moved into a small trailer on a farm in Rogersville. Is that what you remember?
The Rogersville place was a B&B that I rented. It was a cabin.
Okay.
Yes.
And was it around that time that you purchased the knife that we've talked about?
Yes.
You've seen the Facebook posting that you say, well,
Yes.
I'm purchasing this knife because I'm, for my safety.
Yeah.
Is
Yes,
that-
sir.
Is that,
Yes, I was like, I walk alone at night a lot. And yes.
well, was that true?
Yes.
I mean, you're out in the country.
I mean, I go out. Yes, sir.
You liked it out there.
I loved it.
So as we go along, do you think that you're developing some kind of a long-term plan, or are you just kind of living day by day? How would you describe, what is going on in your world at that time?
Well, as far as my living arrangements,
Everything.
oh, okay. Well, we were going to take up permanent residence in Tennessee. My plan was to rent the B&B in the interim till I found us a nice place to live. I found the B&B and rented it for a month. And on the other side of that, it was my plan and Robin's plan together to have Michael arrested. So we decided to go forward with that.
Now, did you have concern? You had a laptop. You had a tablet. Is that correct?
I did have a tablet.
Did you grow concerned that tablet might give your location away?
Yes, I found it in my things in Rogersville when I was unpacking. I kind of had forgotten I had it with me.
Did you and Robin talk about putting together or first of all, contacting law enforcement
Yes, we
with
did.
regard to your husband?
Yes.
And did you do that?
She got in contact with some people for me. I kept a steno pad with the names of the agencies, the phone numbers, the people, what they told me to do. It seems like each agency I would talk to would say, okay, now you need to contact this person. They would give me another person to call, and so on and so forth. So I felt like there were several different places that I talked to.
At some point, did you and Robin actually sit down and write out a PowerPoint presentation?
We worked on the presentation. I did the presentation on my laptop.
Now, I didn't ask
Robin
you
and I
this.
worked on it together. Yes.
I'm sorry. Before that, how did you get a laptop, and why did you get a laptop?
I bought the laptop so I could put together all this information and send it to the TBI.
And how did you get the money to buy that laptop?
My friend Suzanne was giving me money to help me and the girls. She didn't know it was specifically for the laptop. I didn't at the time. But yes, I got money from my friend Suzanne, and that's what I spent it on.
All right. Is that what you wrote the PowerPoint presentation out on?
Yes, it is.
Did you receive help from Robin?
Yes, I did.
And did you send that PowerPoint out?
Yes, I did.
And where did you send it?
To the TBI.
Now, who are you speaking with over there at the TBI?
Special Agent Clay Moore.
Was he attentive to you? Was he helpful to you?
Yes, he was very kind to me. He gave me the email address to send whatever I wanted, whatever pertinent information I thought I had to him.
Did you provide him factual information?
Factual?
Yeah, now that you think back on it?
Not hardly.
None of it?
I thought it was factual at the time. I was bound and determined to send him every truthful fact that I could muster.
Now, we've heard that your friend Robin was a trained psychologist, a professor of psychology at ETSU, correct?
Yes, sir.
And was brilliant in your...
She was always brilliant. Even when we were little kids, she was always brilliant. Robin was a genius.
Did she ever pull you aside and say, Annette, you're disassociating, you're falling apart, you've got some emotional issues?
No, sir. I remember one night she told me I needed therapy. I agreed.
You agreed?
Yes.
Was it available? Did you seek it out?
No, not at that time, no. We were working on our project.
You all were absorbed in a project, weren't you?
Yes, we were.
Maybe even obsessed by
I
the
feel like we
project.
worked on it pretty much every day.
Were you obsessed by it?
Definitely.
Were you both obsessed by it?
I don't know if she was as obsessed as I was. I can't speak for that, but she was definitely working on it with me.
I understand. Anybody else?
No.
Now, as we move up toward mid-January, did things begin to get more intense?
I felt like I was going deeper and deeper into this delusion. More and more sinister, crazy ideas kept becoming part of my reality. I felt like I was so open to suggestion.
You would hear something and it would trigger.
It became my reality when I would hear something.
Were you ever able to remove yourself enough from that frame of mind to be able to look in and see what was happening? Were you capable of doing that?
No.
And so, would you say that was the same type of problem that Robin was dealing with also?
I know she believed me with her whole heart, and she was trying very much to help me.
Of course. So I asked you, as we're moving up toward mid-January, are things, is your anxiety increasing? Are you starting to have more fear, and are you starting to lose more sleep? Tell us what's going on.
Oh, I wasn't
if you
sleeping.
know, if you remember.
I know I wasn't sleeping. I was afraid to go to sleep. I thought something terrible was going to happen. Excuse me. I thought something, if I fell asleep, something terrible was going to happen to the girls. And when I woke up, they'd either be dead or gone. I was afraid to go to sleep.
So there's an incident that we've all heard about that happened at David Crockett High School. What can you recall about that? What can you relate to us about that incident, if anything at all?
Oh, excuse me. That day on my drive, the girls and I had went to Rogersville to the B&B to get our stuff because we had rented a really nice place in Telford. Gorgeous place, gorgeous mountain view. Was so happy to get it. And we were going to get all of our stuff from the B&B and put it all in the house, and we were moving in to the trailer. So that was the day that we were going to go get the last of our stuff, and so we had to drive from Rogersville back to Telford.
Was that when you all were living next to Melinda and Craig's, or was that a different time?
We lived next to Melinda and Craig before we moved from Tennessee to New Jersey.
Okay. All right.
But
I'm
the
sorry.
new place that I found in Telford was just over the hill from the same.
All right.
Anyway, it was still daylight, and on my drive, and I was always taking the back roads. I was just afraid. I thought I was being followed, and I was afraid all the time. So I didn't take the same routes, I was taking the back roads, and I love the back roads. I love the country. It's so beautiful, beautiful country. From Rogersville back roads through Horse Creek into Telford, man, you can't get a better, beautiful drive. And so, yeah, I was taking the back roads, and I kept seeing this white SUV with the taillight out. That was right there ahead of me, sitting on the shoulder of the road. And just when I passed it, it pulled out right behind me and like ran up on me. And I would, try to take a different way, go a different way, whatever. I knew my way around. I've been running these roads forever. Excuse me.
What time were we talking about, the day or night?
It was afternoon. It was the afternoon. So then I'd lose the SUV, and then I'd go a ways, and then there was the SUV again on the side of the road waiting on me. Same SUV, white SUV with the taillight out. And did the same thing. Right when I passed it, gunned it right behind me. It's on my tail. It's following us. I'd lose it. I'd see it again. I know I saw it 3 times. So then finally, I know I had talked to Megan Stark that night. That afternoon, I called Megan Stark.
Now, who's that?
Scared to death.
Who's that?
She was a CPS agent that was assigned to our case from New Jersey, because I had reported allegations of abuse. They had assigned 2 CPS agents, one for New Jersey because supposedly the abuse happened there, and one for Tennessee. And the one from New Jersey was Megan Stark. And I talked to her a lot. And I had called her terrified about these people chasing me and following me, and she told me to get to a safe house.
You called 911 at some point.
Yeah, this is later on that night. So anyway, I told Megan I'll find my own safe house. So that's when I texted Becky Lewis and asked her, could we come to her house? And she said, sure, but at some point I'm going to need to know what's going on. She said, but you can come to my house.
Well, had you had any contact with her up to that point?
Not really.
Okay. Was that out of the blue?
Yes, it was. I was trying to think of some place that I could go that Michael and the people following me would have never thought of. And I thought, well, Becky would be perfect because he's never heard me talk about anybody named Becky before. So he would never know that. So she gave me her address. We went by my house in Telford, got some things, packed a bag, left there. And then when I left Telford to head toward Bristol going to Becky's, there was that white SUV on the shoulder. There's not a shoulder. Right close to Washington College, the road that runs right in front of Washington College. It was right there, just sitting there waiting on me. Same white SUV with taillight out. And that was when I completely freaked out and called 911, because that was like the 4th time I'd seen that SUV that day, and evidently somebody had found me. And the 911 operator told me to go someplace public. And
did you hear that? You remember hearing that call? We played that call in here.
The call?
Yeah, the 911 call. It was played here in this trial.
That call in particular, I don't remember listening to that one.
Remember having to hand the phone off to your daughter?
I know that I did.
And have her talk to the 911 operator?
I know that I did.
You ended up at David Crockett High School.
Yes, I did. She told me there was an officer there and they could help me.
We've heard that you kind of rushed inside and found a kind of semi-lit place and went down on the floor. You remember any of that?
I didn't want to be standing in front of the window. So I got down.
You remember ultimately that a very, very polite and professional officer arrived to try to help you?
I remember talking to the officers.
You remember being given the option, if you will, to go to the medical center for an evaluation?
When the ambulance got there, I didn't want to go. The I don't know what to call him, an EMT or what have you, had checked me out, checked my vitals and done all that, and said that I was okay. And because he said that I was okay, I didn't see any reason to go to the hospital. I didn't realize I needed to go to the hospital for a mental evaluation. And I told him, I don't need to go. The guy just checked me out and said I'm fine. And that was when he said, if you don't go to the hospital, you're going to be arrested. And I'm like, what for? I called y'all for help. What are you going to arrest me for? So the gentlemen that were with the ambulance told me, let's just go ahead and go to the hospital. He said, when you get there, if you feel like you're not going to hurt yourself or anybody else, tell them that, and you can sign yourself out. So that's exactly what I did. I did go in. They handed the people my name on a slip of paper, and I sat there and waited for her to call my name. And I said, they told me to tell you that if I don't want to hurt myself or anybody else, I can check myself out. And she looked at the piece of paper that had my name written on it, and she said, well, that's easy. You never got signed in. I said, okay, and I left.
Never got him checked in, huh?
No, sir.
Called Robin, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
She came and picked you up with her son.
Yes, sir.
And drove you right back down to David Crockett High School. Is that what happened?
Yes.
And then an arrangement was made for Robin to take the children, or was it Becky to take the children?
Initially, they signed the children over to Becky.
Okay. And that's right. And then you and Robin and her son and met up with Becky back at Robin's house.
Becky drove me and the kids. Yes, we went back to Robin's.
Okay, I'm sorry. You and the kids got in with Becky.
Yes.
Go back. Now, we've heard that back at Robin's, we've heard about the night. We've heard about the drinking and the smoking and the I guess the conversation and that was taking place. But we've also heard about an incident where Becky and Robin were. You tell me if you remember the incident where they're trying to talk you into recognizing that you have a problem. Do you remember that?
Well, that's just it. When I was listening to Becky talk about that night, talking about it being a stressful night, that is not what I remember us having fun. I remember us laughing and talking and cutting up and reminiscing. And when she said that was a stressful night, I thought, what? Like,
It's not your perception.
What about the
of it?
fun we had? I remember Robin getting aggravated with me. And initially, Robin got aggravated with me. And we had decided, initially, Becky and me and the kids were going to go to Becky's house and spend the night. But we realized how late it was. Robin's like, y'all can just crash here. And so we were getting ready for bed. And I had went and started to get some pajamas and wash my face and get ready for bed. And Robin was fussing at me, telling me, Annette, you need to do this, you need to do that, this for the kids, that for the kids. And I'm like, can you please give me time to get situated,
Yeah, you mentioned to me, and you might want to. Do you have a particular sensitivity to somebody yelling at you?
Yes, sir.
Has that always been a problem?
I don't know if it's always been a problem. Well, yeah, maybe it has.
You don't like somebody getting in your face?
Well, no, sir.
We've heard from Becky that you were actually in a small bathroom area, and that I think the door was open, but you were in there, and Robin was yelling, or there were loud voices.
Well, when she started getting upset with me, I tried to close the bathroom door to cut myself off from that situation.
Well, did she let you close the door?
No, she did not. She got in the way and wouldn't let me close the door.
Did you react in any violent way?
I backed up and begged her, please don't get in my face. I'm like, you know I'm terrified, Robin. You know I'm terrified. You know I'm abused. I'm like, please. And she did. She stood between me and the door. This is my house, Annette. You're not going to tell me what to do in my house. And, yeah, she yelled at me.
Did it calm down? Did the temperature come down?
Well, I guess so. I went to the bedroom to go to sleep and lay down with the girls.
We've heard that was, maybe even maybe even as many as 3 hours before they opened the door and found you and the girls had vacated the home.
Oh, we didn't. I wasn't planning on leaving. We didn't leave right away.
I know. Well, tell the jury about that episode.
Once I went in there to lay down with the kids, they were asleep. And I laid down with them. And Robin and Becky came into the area. I know y'all seen all the pictures of the house and the diagram, but outside the bedroom, living room, kitchen, there's a bar area with stools. There's a kitchen table. Well, Becky and Robin were sitting at the bar. They came out there to sit and talk, which is basically right outside the spare bedroom where we were. And they were being really loud. I don't know why they decided to come out there. But they were going on and on, talking about me. And they woke up Allie. The commotion woke up Allie. And I went out there and begged them to be quiet. And we're mad at you, Annette. They kept telling me they were mad at me. And I remember that happening a couple of times. Them being loud, not calming down, me begging them to be quiet. And then I went back and laid down, and I just kept listening to them and the things they were saying. And I just kept getting more and more and more scared. And that's when I started texting people, asking them what to do. I texted Agent Clay Moore. And I
You texted Agent Claymore
yes,
that
I did.
night.
Yes, I did. And I texted Megan Stark. And I think I might have tried to call him. I don't know. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I texted the pastor, and he was the only one who answered me.
Now, had you had any conversation with this Pastor Robbins, and any face-to-face communication with this man?
Not after I fled and came back to New Jersey, or came back to Tennessee, no.
Okay.
I saw him at church a couple of times.
All right.
Correct.
So you called him?
I called. I know that I texted him. I don't remember talking to him on the phone that morning, but I know that I texted him and he answered me back in a text. I know that.
And what did you understand the message to be?
I remember him telling me to get out of there. If I was afraid for my life, to get out of there. And I said, well, they told me if I leave with the kids, I'll be arrested. And he said, well, they're your kids. And
you were told if you left with the children, you would be arrested?
Yes. The Miss Jacosha lady, I can't remember her last name, had told me that if I took the kids, that they would arrest me.
Did you think, is that why you thought you had actually kidnapped the children?
I don't remember even saying that, but I remember Mr. Hathaway saying I did.
You've heard that?
I've heard that.
You don't dispute it?
No.
So, you decided to leave, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
You didn't want Annette and Becky to know about it?
Well, I did what my pastor told me to do. So as far as I was concerned, he was the man of God in my life, and he was the one to turn to give me advice if I needed it. And he told me to leave, so I did. That's why I left. I was scared, yes. I was reaching out for help, yes. Asking people, what should I do? I'm scared. So I left.
Well, we've heard what happened. That
Yes,
you
sir.
went out, you got in a cab. The cab took you over to the preacher's house. And at first we heard him come out and say, oh, this is not, this isn't, I really can't help you today. But then you heard the cabbie say that he came out and yelled at you and told you to leave his property. What happened? Which of those stories is true?
What I remember the pastor saying is, I wash my hands of this whole situation, Miss Annette. And I remember crying and bawling and saying, Pastor, well, what am I supposed to do now?
This is January. Early morning, January. And you're alone.
And there was snow on the ground. And I did what he told me to do. I left.
At this point, you're alone.
Yes.
You don't have anywhere to go.
Well, I mean, I had a home in Telford. I was afraid to go back there. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of everybody.
I don't remember what happened after that. Do you? Oh, eventually you end up at the Shell station. That's it. The cab take.
Before we get
Yes.
to the Shell station, let's take a
Yeah.
lunch break. The jury's anxious just arrived. They're setting that up. We're going to a different scenario. It's a good place to stop and take a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we still have testimony to go. Don't talk about the case. You've heard a lot this morning, but don't discuss it until you've heard everything. The law tells you what it is, okay? So don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Enjoy your lunch.